Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Environmental Social Justice. I'm your host, Wendy Nystrom, and today's special guest is Zena Harris. She is the founder of Green Spark Group. So welcome to the show, Zena.
Hi, Wendy. It's nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for joining. I know you're incredibly busy working in the motion picture industry, but before we hop into what Green Spark Group does, could you tell us about your background? Because you actually have a very unique background of hopping into sustainability.
Sure. Yeah. My background, let's see. First of all, I grew up in a very small town in South Texas. So, and then I did my undergrad at Texas A&M University, and I majored in psychology. I was very interested in, human behavior and in the context of work, right? And so I worked at a large company after that in human resources, got to interact with lots of different departments throughout the company. It was an engineering company, and got to meet a ton of people, did a lot of training out in the field, and then found myself really wondering, like, there's got to be more to this. I'm training a lot of folks. I don't think our systems are that great. I worked in mergers and acquisitions at the time and bringing new people into the company. And so that got me thinking about kind of the organizational side of it. And I went into a master's program at Harvard for corporate sustainability. And that's what I was studying. And in that, I came upon a couple of, a series of studies actually from the Boston Consulting Group and the MIT Sloan School. And they were interviewing folks in the C-suite of companies in various industries over a series of a few years. And I was reading those reports as part of my master's degree work. And what I noticed was that the entertainment sector, if you will, was always at the bottom of the list. Are you integrating these practices? Are you integrating social elements of, sustainability in your organization or environmental aspects in your organization? Entertainment always came at the bottom of the list. And I thought, my gosh, like the entertainment, arts, culture, this is what drives, popular culture and influences
and behavior.
Yeah. And so that was then the focus of my master's thesis, was focusing specifically on film and TV, because, you have to narrow it down at some point. And that's what got me started on this whole journey in entertainment, is by sitting there doing my homework, reading up on how folks are integrating sustainability in big organizations and in various sectors. So
that's pretty incredible. I mean, I love the fact that you do have a psychology background, because dealing with multiple personalities or individuals' personalities, that's challenging at times, and knowing how to monitor behavior and influence people correctly is really important, especially in the business world. But then taking that knowledge, finding a gap in the entertainment industry, because I know one friend who works, he's a grip, which I didn't even know what that was 10 years ago. And he took a picture of like a bunch of stuff on the ground and says, "Into the dumpster it goes." And I said, "Have you thought about repurposing that?" And he just wrote back saying, "Now we just throw it all away." And I thought, wow. I mean, I felt powerless. I was like, who am I? I love the fact that you said, "I'm going to fix this. I see this gap. I see this hole. I'm going to fix it."
Yeah, well, my life might have been completely different if there was another sector that was, at the bottom of the list, because my whole goal was to try and do something to help an industry, right? And film and TV or entertainment just happened to be there. And, that's a great point. I have always been, kind of this, in the course of all my work, have been focused on people. When I worked in human resources, when I worked, got my degree in psychology, like I was always very people oriented in that work. And it's been interesting over the years because, as we have gotten more data focused and clean tech focused, and there are all these new tools and gadgets out there, folks are focusing on those a lot. And I think, wait a second, what about the people? Do they know the foundational elements of sustainability? Are we talking to them and engaging with them around sustainability so that they have a pathway for using those tools and whatnot? So it's always been really people focused for me in the course of my work.
And I love the fact you keep it simple, because a lot of, we're both in this field. We both have background in this. We can talk in a language that a lot of people won't understand. And the key point is to engage others who may not have that background. And we don't want anyone to feel dumb or stupid or left out or excluded. It's bringing those people in that engaging conversation simultaneously with the entertainment industry. That is how people are influenced in their behavior. They watch somebody that they admire on the screen and they want to mimic that. So it's really important that you are bringing those elements in. And hence starting Green Spark Group. I mean, please tell us when did you get started? And you kind of have a cool background in that too.
Well, so after grad school, my family moved to Vancouver, British Columbia. It just so happened right as I was finishing, my partner was starting a new job in the Vancouver area. And so I was looking around. I had just done this, all of this work on the film and TV industry. And I was looking around and said, wait a second, Vancouver at the time probably still is the third largest film hub in North America. Yeah. And so I started asking questions, what's going on? What are the industry organizations here? These kinds of things. And then I got in touch with the folks at the studios who I had interviewed for my master's thesis. And I went down to LA and I was like, hey, I'm now in Vancouver. Let's talk. Here are a few productions I see coming online there. What can we do? And I ended up getting a job on production doing that.
I love it.
And I know it's like, it's like, we are literally writing on a napkin in a restaurant. I'm just joking.
That's what insurance people used to do.
I'd love to add that part into the story, but it was almost like that. And so I started working. One of the big shows I worked on in the early days was the X-Files season 10. It was coming back online. It had a long run, and they were bringing it back for a couple of more seasons. And it was the first big production I worked on, and everybody rallied on that production. It was a new concept to have a sustainability manager on production. I was running around talking to all departments, going out on the tech scouts, figuring out, what was going on, where we could find ways to, at the time, reduce our waste. That was kind of the big focus back in the day. And that was 2014, 2015. That was 10 years ago. And I saw, well, wait a second, this is one production in Vancouver, and there are something like, 30 to 50 productions filming at the same time in that city. So like, if I'm doing this on one, what are the other productions doing, right? So that got me thinking that there had to be a business opportunity to this. There had to be a way to scale this and have more people out there working on this. And not only on production, but what about the rest of the value chain? Like, what about the vendors that we are engaging with every day? And what about the folks at the studio that, that monitor the budget, that have the policies? How do they connect with productions? This is all a very interesting prospect for me. And I started Green Spark Group right away when I kind of had that aha moment. And it's been 10 years. We've been working at this and evolving over the last 10 years.
Well, yeah, you have to evolve. I mean, this is a constantly changing environment. The past 5 years alone have been rather remarkable with respect to sustainability. I do want to circle back when you mentioned the napkin thing. I worked in insurance for 20 years, environmental insurance. I kid you not, some people would actually do an insurance deal on a napkin. I always thought, oh yeah, it's a big joke. I went to the file room looking for any notes at all on a certain account that was pretty old, pulled out the file, and in it was stapled a napkin. Kid you not. That's all I had to go on. So it does happen at times. And
it happens. But I use a notebook. I write notes on a notebook, and I had it right there on the table. And I was writing all the shows down and all the
absolutely. And I love that was. Oh yeah, no, it was just a funny story because people are like, oh, that doesn't really happen. I'm like, it has. I've seen it.
It does.
But no, you engage everyone, and most people don't realize with respect to sustainability in any industry you're in, you are going to touch every single department in that company because it's the money, it's the people, it's the finances, the mergers and acquisitions, it's where you're buying your things from. It is the vendors you are using, and people don't really know what vendor diversity is. You want diverse local people. You don't want to keep using from the same ones to give that equity out. So it's a complicated, living, breathing beast that you have to constantly evolve and monitor. And one of the things I loved, I took notes on this, you focus a lot on training and education. That is training, education, communication, especially for me, I think are the most important three things to focus on, because if you don't train and educate and communicate, you're going to lose people. They're just not going to get it.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's kind of, you know, it's interesting because I find that it's foundational in my mind. And also I find people kind of use, you know, education as a kind of a, almost as a throwaway word sometimes. Oh yeah, we just need education, you know? So it can also start to come across as like, you know, something simple or something, you know, that, you know, of course we should just have this, you know? And I think, well, wait a second, like, you know, education comes in multiple forms, first of all, and we have to, as you said, engage with everyone, because the minute we start narrowing in and focusing only on kind of one area or one kind of piece of this ecosystem, it means that the rest of the ecosystem, or if you want to think about it, the rest of the production or the departments, it kind of, you know, there are various levels to this, right? It means that they're not aware of what, you know, that kind of the educated piece knows, and they don't know how to interact, or they aren't able to, you know, enhance what could be, you know, from a sustainability perspective. Oh, yeah. And so it's kind of like, you know, everybody sitting at the dinner table and everybody enjoying the same meal. That's kind of how I see education. We bring it to everyone. It comes, you know, you got to know your audience, and you got to, you know, be able to kind of tailor a little bit to them, but everybody is getting an understanding of what sustainability is and whatnot. So it's, to me, it's foundational. It's super important. Everybody in every corner of the industry, no matter where you work, should have some knowledge of the sort of foundational elements of sustainability, so they can engage in conversation with folks on set, folks in their company, you know, vendors, marketing people, the audience, whatever it is, you need to have a vocabulary, some foundation for sustainability. And I think it's really, really important.
I love the fact that you brought the image in of everybody sitting down at a dinner table and talking together. A lot of people may feel afraid to approach that dinner table, afraid that they don't know enough. And what you're doing is you're letting everybody know. Nobody knows everything in this field. I'm sorry, no matter how many people say they're a sustainability expert, we are all constantly learning. Things are constantly changing. Science is constantly evolving. It's just the nature of it. Bringing everybody together. And then if you could explain to people, because you brought up ecosystems, circular economy, not everybody may understand what a circular economy or circular systems means. Just to bring that knowledge so people understand.
Sure. Yeah. You know, we have a lot of buzzwords in, you know, in our industry. For
I try to keep them out.
and I, you know, and I'm sure other industries have it as well. The circular economy, this is, you know, maybe folks hear about it in the news or whatnot and aren't quite sure what it is. And it's a concept where that is, in my mind, heavily, not just in my mind, but this is, I tend to really lean into this first part, focused on the design of the product or service, entering into a system. So any system, it can be any system. It could be how you run your house. Perfect. It could be how you, you know, run your classroom if you're a teacher. It could be how you interact with your school if we're you know, talking about teachers. It could be how you run a production, right? And all of the people involved in that system. And so the design part is thinking about how to design what's coming into that system and keeping that material in the system once you're done with it, how does it go back into the system for reuse? That's the key. Now, the byproducts can also be recycling and waste, but those are less desirable than reuse. And, it can be anything from, if you're thinking about your household, it could be anything from reusing a plastic bag in your household system to, big set materials being used on, on a film or TV set and designed to be taken apart or in a modular way so that they can be reused on the next production. So it can apply across the board. You have to scale it to fit your particular need. But I think the key point is the design phase. It is not the output phase, the sort of waste phase. It is not a focus on recycling. We tend to get really honed in to recycling and feel like we, do a really good job with that. But it's interesting because I've heard, my colleagues say, we cannot recycle our way out of climate change, first of all. That's just
and it's not really getting recycled.
And secondly, if you think about it, recycling is it is an output of that system. And, in my mind, it is, if you have a lot of recycling, it shows that you didn't do, what you could have done in that design phase. Yeah. To design for reuse. Right.
Absolutely.
So it's a sign of maybe poor planning in that regard, where you didn't plan for how that material could be reused. So I think shifting to that design phase of your system, whatever it is just really important to think about.
Absolutely. And I love the way that the simplicity that you've brought it up is, recycling really doesn't work, guys. We kind of know this. It's kind of a giant myth, but repurposing something. So as Zena said, you have an option to buy item A or an option to buy item B. Item A can be recycled. Great. Awesome. Item B can be repurposed or pulled apart and recreated into something else and put back into that system, used something else. You want item B because you can just reuse that thing over and over and over again until it completely falls apart. Then that is actually very effective. Recycling it and just buying another one and buying another one and buying another one. It's kind of a vicious cycle, kind of a death spiral, if you want to think of it.
Yeah.
Not a great idea. So I just have to ask you, because you've been on so many productions, what's the main thing that you see that is just like the biggest concern when you go on set and you're like, okay, here we go again. Got to fix this.
Yeah, it's interesting. Kind of back to my early days, or my main focus on the people, the first thing I notice is how engaged the leadership is.
Oh,
period.
That's very cool. Okay.
I have a kind of a, I don't know, like a little internal, vibe or bell or whatever that goes off saying, yep, this person is not really into this, and they are controlling the entire production. How are we going to deal with that? You know what I mean? How are we going to work with that? Maybe we can talk through it and they'll come around. But if not, then we really have to start, kind of approaching the work with a different strategy. The first thing I look at is how engaged the leadership is. That is number one. And then from there, in talking to the various department heads, how engaged and interested are those department heads, because they control their department. That's, lots of crew members. Yeah. Right. And, it's just, if you do not have engagement or interest, curiosity from the leadership, then it's really difficult to integrate sustainable practices consistently. It might happen well on day one because everybody's like, yeah, let's do it, but it fades. Or it's really difficult to consistently use that really cool piece of clean tech that the production is paying for anyway. It's really difficult if there is a lack of support from the top. And so that's the first thing I look for.
And I would also say, any kind of reaction from the top will feed down. Like, as you've mentioned, crew members, they are, there's budget, there's time crunches. Everyone needs to get it done quickly and as efficiently as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And when you engage the leadership and in that initial design, you get that efficiency, which, as we all know, saves money in the end.
That's right. That's right. It's been shown over and over and over. We have a little document that has, you know, a few myths, because we just keep hearing the same things over and over and over again. It's like, and so that is, you know, with anything in life, there will be choices that one makes on, you know, on something that might cost a little more or not, but they're going to use the product anyway, whatever it is. They're going to use the thing. They might have a decision to make. Do we want this one or this one? It's the same thing with production. And what we've also find is that the cost savings comes with the operation or the use of the equipment, for example, over time. So with equipment, and you can take this into your personal life as well, with equipment like electric vehicles, for example, we're moving a lot of people around. Fuel consumption is the biggest part of the production's carbon footprint.
Yeah.
Because of the fuel, the gas and the diesel that we're using to power our vehicles, our trucks, to carry all that gear, and also the equipment to mostly power production. And so we know this. So one solution is incorporating electric vehicles. And so, you know, those tend to, although the cost is starting to be on par with other vehicles, but they tend to rent for a little bit more. There's a bit of a premium for electric vehicles. And what we find is that, you know, refueling, if you will, recharging the battery costs a lot less over the course of the production than buying gasoline.
So you get that balance. It ends up evening out. And also the efficiency of our batteries are getting so much better. The efficiency of solar panels are vastly improved from even 5 years ago. It's just, you know, it makes sense.
It makes sense. It makes sense. And it's interesting because one of the barriers there is, you know, not everybody has experience with electric vehicles. So if you're asking someone on set to use an electric vehicle for this project, there is a hesitancy because they don't quite know how it's going to work or what it might mean for their schedule, because everything is, you know, timed out, scheduled. There are a lot of logistics that go on a film production. You have to pick someone up over here. You have to move equipment over here. There's a lot. And so that's a real barrier. And so the more that, you know, these become prevalent in, you know, daily life, people have experience with them, folks are educated on, you know, how that they might be used, the more they're used on production, where a crew, you know, get experience and they move from production to production to production, and they can carry that with them, the more it'll become normalized.
And it's also just the adaptation. I mean, when I talk to people about electric vehicles and they say, oh, well, they just run out of energy and, you know, there are no charging stations. And it's called range anxiety. But here's the thing. 100 years ago, when cars were new, we didn't have gas stations on every corner. So people planned, and they either carried their own or had extra, you know, extra charge, or they just planned ahead. Hey, I'm at half a tank. I remember growing up in Michigan. You're at half a tank in the wintertime, you fill up, you do not play. Yeah. And you just plan ahead of time. So with EVs, they are now on every single corner. There are charging stations pretty, you know, we're in California, we're a little different, but it is getting there. And if you just plan, it's really not an issue with range anymore. And the charge is held longer. So
yeah, you know, it's interesting. We're not, you know, with every new, this is an evolution, right? So we're not starting from zero every time there's a new product or service that comes onto the market. We're starting from, you know, where we are, and we're just making a step change, and then we're making a step change, right? So it's not like we're starting from zero when thinking about sustainability or comparing to zero. We would have done something anyway, right? We would have spent money on, you know, that car and the fuel anyway. So let's think about how we're going to do it, you know, now in a new way or with a new, you know, vehicle. And any cost differential is not it's not coming from zero. It's coming from what you would have done anyway, right?
And,
some of it is savings, and some of it might be a few dollars more.
Initially, but then it balances.
It balances out. If you look at the whole budget, you see some things are going to cost a little more, some a little less, and then it starts to balance out. So it is really interesting. And I think just as people get more used to this idea, I mean, look, like you said, you know, we had to plan out. I remember, you know, years ago, looking on my computer for the directions on how to get somewhere, writing them out or printing the MapQuest.
Oh, MapQuest. Oh my God. There's like being a pirate.
And holding the map while I drive to figure out where I'm going. Like, we had to do that, but we've evolved, right? And so
I remember the fold out maps.
The fold out
things that were like this big.
Yes.
Like, where am I?
So that's the same thing here, right? We've gotten really good with our smartphones. You know, we used to not have them. And we know how to plug them in every night to charge them up. And it's the same concept with electric cars. Yeah. Right. And it's just getting, you know, that technology is just getting a little smarter, just like our smartphones. And so it's an evolution in that kind of category as well.
Absolutely. Now, you know, I now want to take my nephews, give them a paper map and say, see if you can get there.
I know.
Let's see if you can learn on the fly, because we all had to do it. I remember holding that map up on the steering wheel and doing this, like, where am I?
I know. Driving with one hand, holding it like, you know, like that's, you know, was that really
especially you're in a rural area where there may not be a sign.
I know.
No, that's happy memories for me in my field camp in Maine. There were no signs. It was just like the dirt road on the left. Okay. we're gonna take a chance. But no, Zena, thank you so much for your time. Your knowledge is obviously immense. How can people find you and work with you? Because what GreenSpark Group is doing is absolutely necessary in all phases of the entertainment world, from production to events to everything.
Sure. Yeah. So our website is greensparkgroup.com, and you can email us at hello@greensparkgroup.com. So that is for GreenSpark Group. But I wanted to mention one other thing that I'm working on because of this decade of experience and these stories from crew members and folks innovating behind the scenes. I am starting a podcast with a friend of mine, Mark Rabin, who is the founder of an equipment company called Portable Electric. And we're doing this independently because we believe in it. For years, we've been hearing all these wonderful stories. And so it's called The Tie-In. And it is about connecting the sustainability we want with the entertainment that we love. And so you can find us on thetiein.com and go to the website, and it's tie-in with a dash, thetiein.com, and go to the website, submit your email address. We're going to launch it in June. So I'm really excited. We have series 1 already in the can. So there are a lot of great stories. I think people are going to love it. It's about, you know, what happens behind the scenes and how people are problem solving.
And that's so important that people know the real life stories that happen and how to address them on the fly. This isn't something where you just kind of stop and think about it. It's like, no, you have to rapid fire think about how you solve these problems. And that's exactly what you guys are doing. And the tie-in sounds like it's really entertaining. So I'm a junkie when it comes to the entertainment industry and all the stories, especially the behind the scenes stories. I find that fascinating. So I will be definitely checking that out. So thank you for letting me know. But no, Zena, thank you so much for your time. The work you're doing is amazing. It really is.
Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Anytime. So guys, please check out GreenSpark Group. Please check out the Tie-In podcast. We'll be launching soon. And I will catch you next time. My name is Wendy Nystrom. I'm your host with Environmental Social Justice. Talk to you guys later. Bye.